So again, everybody, for those of you who have joined a bit later, good morning. And it's my pleasure to welcome Tony Carr of eMerge Africa, the convener for today's panel discussion. He's the educational technologist at the Center of Innovation in Learning and Teaching at the University of Cape Town, and he's going to lead this panel discussion. Tony, will you please introduce your panel members? We try to make all of them presenters, but sometimes people use other names and we can't recognize them. So if you can just indicate to us if all of them have presenter rights, and then I am going to hand over to you to lead the session.
Thank you very much, Marie, and it's a great pleasure to be here again. And I love the collaboration that exists between FODES and eMerge Africa around some aspects of the astonishing FODES conference. Sorry I couldn't be here yesterday, and I believe many wonderful things happened, and I'll catch up with the recordings. I'm going to, I note that we have our panelists are all down under the presenter classification. So I'm going to ask if when we have a step away from the presentation, I think Prinavin's coming back in, when we have a step away from the presentation, if all of our panelists, including Prinavin, can be spotlit, if that is possible in the system. Okay, I'm going to share an application here. Here we go. Okay, so you should be able to see this presentation. And it's not going to be a lot of presenting, it's going to be a lot of conversation. Yeah, I mean, I and my colleague Irene Maweu are absolute online facilitation junkies and have steeped ourselves in this process for many, many years. So when we had the chance to talk about online facilitation here, we just grabbed this like a shot. We just really grabbed it. Our panel consists of Professor Silvenus Konyole from Masinde, Muliro University of Science and Technology in Kenya, Dr. Prinavin Govender, lecturer in Information Systems Department at Durban University of Technology, Ghawa Latib, Learning and Development Manager at Momentum Group, and Irene, who's also with eMerge Africa and Heart of Africa Facilitation, who's based in Masinde, Kenya. And we'll bring in Irene particularly for the last bit of the process. So I think we need to start off with, what is online facilitation? A lot of people are not familiar with it. Some might be more familiar with it. Facilitation basically means you're making things easier, and it's online, but it involves more than just online support. And there are particular capabilities that are required to make online facilitation work. You can't just move from face-to-face facilitation into an online environment and think that everything you do face-to-face is going to work online because of the particular affordances and constraints of the online environment. And a part of online facilitation is easing participants' learning in an online environment, recognizing that participants will have different experiences and different emotional engagement as a result of the online environment. Yeah, facilitators can be thought of in different ways. A facilitator could be somebody who's a cultivator, nurturer, a caterer of tasty ingredients and foods, a host. Lots of different ways of thinking about facilitators. These are just a few of them. And when we're online, what we're actually having to do is to mediate relationships between three different aspects: disciplinary content, human connection, and the technologies that we're using. So we are working with all three of those, and sometimes moving more to one end or another, depending on our role. So if we're online teachers, as well as online facilitators, we may sometimes be more at the disciplinary content end, but we always need to be thinking about the human connection and about the technology. In our model of training online facilitators in the Facilitating Online course, which is an 8-week completely online course, we have 5 different areas of capability: supporting online learning, social skills, online communication skills, technical skills, and social networking skills. And clearly what's happening over the last couple of years is that those skills have to include engaging creatively and constructively with the opportunities of AI to support online facilitation as well. So for the panel, there will be several different questions. Firstly, asking the panelists about their most valuable learning from the Facilitating Online course. Then, how did their online facilitation skills help them and their students to get through the pandemic? Thirdly, how do you use online facilitation in your work currently? Fourth, can you tell us about innovations in online facilitation that you've introduced or action you've taken to train new online facilitators? And the fifth question, what advice do you have for new online facilitators or people who are just thinking about getting into online facilitation one way or another? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can then hopefully see our panelists, which would be great if there's a way to do that kind of multiple spotlighting. I'm not assuming, but if there is, that would be great. So our first question, what was your most valuable learning from the course? And maybe I'm going to ask Silvenus, if you're here, if you'd like to start with that question and just answer that question. Silvenus? I see lots of reconnecting is happening. Irene is reconnecting. Silvenus is reconnecting. In the meanwhile, Prinavin, Prinavin's also reconnecting. Lots of reconnecting is happening. Ghawa, perhaps you could start with your most valuable learning from the course.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, for me, I think the course just opened up a whole new world for me. You know, I had been making very limited use of online technology, specifically had been using Adobe Connect at the time. And for me, I think what stood out of the value was the course actually just gave me that confidence that I needed. I sort of thought I needed to be equipped with all of the tech skills, you know, to be able to, you know, effectively deliver. And I think I felt like I was in a safe space, you know, to sort of co-create with people, you know, who had varied amounts of skill and backgrounds and, you know, had worked in different types of learning environments. We could share, we could debate. I think I really took value out of those engagements. I think I marveled also at the way that the course was put together, because I think there was a lot of thought put into, you know, the use of something like a Padlet to introduce yourself at the beginning, and, you know, knowing later on we'd sort of dive deeper into the use of that tool in further activities. So I think it was a really nice humanizing space for me. I found it very immersive, very engaging as well, and just gave me just the right amount of stitch that I needed at the time. And I think that course sort of allows you to take it as far as you can. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things I did take away from it that I try to apply regularly in my design approach, you know, to the course I'm facilitating is finding a balanced use of asynchronous and synchronous learning methodologies. You can't just do everything one way, but you also don't need to use all the tools in the toolbox. So it's really just about.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll bring you back several times for other questions too. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Prinavin about your most valuable learning from the course. Your juicy takeaways from the course, Prinavin.
Oh, hi, Tony. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Tony. I think my takeaway was that I enjoyed the fact that I could play around in a sandbox environment, knowing it was a safe space and knowing that I won't be judged for making mistakes and knowing that I would not be, I'm allowed to make mistakes and I could learn from that. So thank you for that opportunity in the course. And I just have to admit that I'm one of the old pioneers, 2015, 2016. So it was way before, it was cool to do online sessions. So thank you, Tony, for that. Oh, if I may add, it's not just old, I'm an experienced facilitator. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Prinavin. Let's move on to Silvenus. I see you're back with us.
Yes.
Welcome, Silvenus.
I'm back, Tony. Sorry, my network seems unstable, but I'll try. Can you hear me?
Thank you. So can you tell us about some of your most valuable learning from the course?
Yeah, I think the course puts you as a facilitator, or it raises this issue of the facilitator being the learning designer, with the aspect of beginning with the end in mind, I would call it, because as I went through the course, I remember the first introductory bit of it where people were given a chance to comment about anything and everything, and it was chaos inside there. But in a short while, of course, then the facilitator comes in and starts guiding the process, and then you quickly see settlement in the room, and there seems to be direction that is being given in the process, and then you can start picking the learning bits in the process. So for me, the stressing role of the facilitator, and of course, the learning design bit, beginning with the end in mind, I think are very important points that I carry away. Thanks.
Thank you, Silvenus. I'm just going to share to see our next question. Okay, and our next question is, how did your online facilitation skills help you and your students to get through the pandemic? Because that was the real test of whether you really had learned online facilitation, those lockdown years during the pandemic. So let's start with, lots of people reconnecting. Let's allow for a little bit of reconnecting going on here. Just allow for reconnecting time. Okay, I see everyone's reconnected now. This is very good. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that. So it's like when I switch back to presentation mode, what happens is that it kind of throws people off and out. Yeah, okay, so we're reconnecting again. So maybe, Prinavin, maybe you can tell us about how your online facilitation skills helped you and your students to get through the pandemic.
Okay, great. Thank you for the question, Tony. Yes, I think like many of us, when for getting the
piles of reconnecting happening. This is a little bit problematic. I notice Prinavin's also reconnecting. Wait for Prinavin to reconnect.
Yeah.
Okay. In the meanwhile, maybe Oh dear. And Silvenus, maybe you can come in the meanwhile and tell us about.
Yeah, I see him back. Can I go ahead or I wait? Yeah.
Hi, Tony, I'm back. Hi, Tony, I'm back.
Oh, good. It looks like many of us are back, which is excellent. So maybe you can tell us about how you got through the pandemic and helped your students get through the pandemic with online facilitation.
Okay. Well, it was with lots of coffee, I can tell you that, to keep me awake starting. And yes, you can identify with that. And I think it was preparation, you know, before an online session, I had WhatsApp groups running, we could chat and talk, and just this feeling of camaraderie, trying to bring that face-to-face interaction with them in an online environment. And very often, Tony, it wasn't just the curriculum that we were talking about. It was like, how are you coping? How are you doing? Condolences, there was a death in the family. Do you have masks? Do you have a sanitizer? Is there deliveries, food supply chain? And that started off the lesson before we got into the crux of it all. And a major issue for us during the pandemic getting through was the assessment part. How do you deal with online tests and network issues? I mean, we are experiencing something similar to this right now. But I can tell you, thankfully, God willingly, we got through, and I'm happy for that.
Thank you, Prinavin. Let's move on to Silvenus.
Yes, I would say this came at a point when the policy was still against this. So I must thank the pandemic in a good way for accelerating the policy approvals. But immediately this came, and I remember the Senate meeting that approved online teaching. The students were a bit hesitant, and I remember some of them confronting me. I was also head of a department, asking me, if we learn online, how will we graduate? Will we still graduate online, you know? And so the buy-in from the student side was a bit slow. Of course, for me, the course had prepared me to kind of just pick this up and go on with it. So slowly there was a shift. And I remember the first sessions were quite involving for both ends. But with the time when it settled, I would say there was the curiosity bubble. So the students were more enthusiastic to actually on board. And then followed a session of fatigue, I would call it, because the requests were enormous. You know, there'll be these sessions where they would ask for you to now facilitate at night. But of course, yeah, the first thing is being the pushing side, we were willing, of course. There was no kind of regulation of when, because when they were willing to learn, then you only joined them so that you can push this process. Of course, with the policy support, things settled very quickly. We had also the challenges with assessment, I would say. There was torn between whether people to come physically for the exam or do it online. So we had our first challenges with that, but thank God we had a good technical support. So that went very well. And yeah, as we speak, we have a class remotely run, a northern part of Kenya. For those who are familiar, the section is a bit remote, so we still experience challenges with net, but it works for those who are working and are also trying to build their skills or enhance their knowledge in the areas of nutrition and dietetics, which is also highly employable there, because nutrition in emergency employs quite a number of people there with basic certificate all the way. So they continue retooling and retraining to just enhance their qualifications for better performance. Thanks.
Thank you, Silvenus. And I'm going to bring in Ghawa next. And note that one of the most important things for me about Ghawa being on the panel is that Ghawa is deeply experienced in work in the training sector. Unlike others on the panel who are based in universities, Ghawa's work over many years has been in the training sector. So how did your online facilitation skills help you and your trainees get through the pandemic, Ghawa? And your students, because you've moved around a bit.
Thank you so much, Tony. I actually related quite a bit to what Prinavin was saying, and Silvenus as well. I think we experienced very similar challenges. I must say, though, that we had attended the program well before the pandemic, not realizing, or little did we know the importance of what, the skills that we took away and how that was going to impact us. I think just, what could have been a very disempowering situation for us as facilitators who are predominantly facilitating in a face-to-face setting, just became something that I felt empowered enough to tackle. And in a time of uncertainty, I think your learners or your students, they're facing so much uncertainty that I think your role becomes that of somebody who provides some form of certainty in that environment that you create. So I think we were very mindful about creating that space to learn, but also for people to just check in, as Prinavin said, and just sort of like, how are you doing? What are you worrying about right now? How can we set you at ease? And then moving mindfully into the learning. I think there was a lot of thought that needed to go into also adjusting the timing and the pace of things, the resources that we were using. And I think I took my cue from the students or the learners. And I think that is the important, aspect to think about. I think for the students, they took pride in the fact that they were still able to complete a qualification in a very uncertain time. And so something as simple as Silvenus was saying, the assessment aspect, like how are we going to get through the assessment? I think the time that we took was more in briefing that assessment clearly and thinking about, the methods that we were going to use to support them in that, and then thinking about, okay, how are we going to physically get that assessment into the office during a lockdown period, for that to be able to happen. And so I think it was really, just the, I can't say we can thank the pandemic, but I can say we can thank the program for having equipped us with that ability, to support and provide that support in a very uncertain time.
Thank you, Ghawa. What I'm hearing from many people here is that online facilitation is a major part of teaching and training, and it takes you beyond the one who communicates the information to somebody who is really focused on how to make the learning process go a bit easier and a bit more effectively. Irene, do you have any insights or observations so far from what you've been hearing from the panel?
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for the panelists. I think what I'm hearing is the connection between the process that everybody went through in the facilitating online and during and after COVID, the way they used different ways in their own settings, what they had learned and how they used it to improve whatever was going to happen, and how they are continuing with their facilitating online in their own places of work. It also shows the connection between the higher education and the private sector and the non-government organization, how that also comes together. It doesn't matter which settings you are in, but the facilitating online looks like it brings people together, and there's a connection there that happened, and that is continuing. Yeah, back to you, Tony.
Thank you. And what's shining right through is the realization that learning is simultaneously both individual and social. Let's go on to the next question, which is, how do you use online facilitation in your work currently? Can we start with you, Silvenus? How are you using online facilitation currently in your work?
Thank you, Tony. I think the higher education sector in the country is undergoing tremendous changes, and one of it is that the exchequer funding higher education generally will keep going down and down. So the universities are have actually been challenged to go out of their way to prop up this kind of income stream, if I would call it. And so one of the things I've seen with this is more flex in learning. Yeah. And so we have sessions that we are teaching online, like I've given you the example of what we have in the northern Kenya, Turkana to be specific for those who may know. And then increasingly, I'm also seeing postgraduates are opting for online studies. And that for me works perfect, because then I have the skills and I'm able to take part in that. Specifically for me, something that I experienced is when I came from this course, I got so excited with it, and I had a team behind me that I also like encouraged to even register for the course, but locally we also mentor ourselves. So we have a small community of practice here within my university that they are now, because some of them were young faculty who are now moving out of the university to other opportunities elsewhere. But of particular interest to me are this group of my former students who are part of also the ethics training that I was initiating in the university for building the capacity of our IREC in the institution. And so linked to that, I also teach research methods to the whole school actually, which is an equivalent of the faculty. And the topic on research ethics is one that I've actually delegated to this team, because they actually got a better training on it through some capacity building project that was hosted by the Kenya Medical Research Institute with support from NIH. And so for me, when it comes to the research ethics topic, I get facilitation from all corners of Kenya, because the 3-4 guys that helped me co-teach this are now in various institutions in the country. And for me, it's a very good thing. It's something I can boldly attend a workshop knowing I will sit in there listening to what they do as I co-participate, but the co-teaching is with the 3 of them, and they have now designed it in a way that it actually just fits one after the other, you know. So for me, I would mention those 3, but slightly there's also the Nutrition Academy.
Just hold for a bit here, because I think you're moving into the next question already, and let's give other people a chance to answer this one. No, this is great. This is wonderful, because it really shows your passion. And that's something which is marvelous to hear communicated online. Let's move to Prinavin about how are you using online facilitation in your work currently?
Thank you, Tony. You know, it says once you go online, there's no going back. And even though we have been mandated to go face-to-face, I still go online. I have a face-to-face lecture, and I invite students to join me online, and I record the lecture, and I'll post it to YouTube, you know. So I'm opening myself up to criticism. And believe it or not, at DUT, we kind of changing our business model. I hope I can just do a little bit of advertising for us. You know, we want to have online courses now, and we want to get our students involved in their online assessments. We have a business studies unit, and they're going online. They want to use proctoring software. In fact, it's come from the students that you are inviting us to a course. We're paying registration, and this is what we want. In my postgraduate course, Tony, I use online on a Saturday. I have students around the country that I can do that. Had it not been for the online facility, we would have lost that income. Sorry to put education in business terms, but that's what it is. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Prinavin. Ghawa, I know that you're not currently doing much online facilitation, so I'm going to ask you to move on to the next question about innovations in online facilitation and anything you've done that involves the training of new online facilitators or support of new online facilitators.
Thanks so much, Tony. I did have a small example of how we use online facilitation that I thought I could reflect on, if you're okay with that, and then I can just quickly run into this question. So we do have a mentorship program. I'm actually overseeing an actuarial program, and within that we offer actuarial mentorship to some of our bursary students, as well as students who are completing their professional designation as fellows. And we've realized the importance of this type of online support to mentors. So we often have online mentor connect sessions to empower them as mentors to have the opportunity to reflect, on their mentorship journey with their mentees and what they've learned. And that is, I suppose, a two-way street. We're offering that online facilitation, but we're also empowering our mentors with the ability to facilitate better mentoring sessions and to share with each other as well. So that's just one simple example. We also make quite extensive use of Maweu recently, which has just been an amazing place for ideation and new ideas. And that said, in terms of innovations within our space, we're very fortunate to have a group digital learning team that sort of supports us with resources, and we've sort of created a bit of a tribe within our space in Momentum Group. We call ourselves a digital learning community, and I think it's very similar to what Silvenus mentioned as a community of practice. And so we sort of offer each other masterclasses and, really share resources with each other, ask for help. We involve each other in various work streams, using Maweu as an example to sort of build on ideas that can help each other. We have a strategic L&D forum as well, which just really allows us to stretch ourselves. And I think some of the simple things we ask ourselves is every time we make a change, what barriers might we be creating in introducing something new, paying attention to, bringing creativity and humor into our spaces. So we sort of challenge ourselves as a digital learning community to ask those tough questions and, to sort of ideate further, and then what we're doing. So I think that's been working really well for us. And I think also the online space has naturally just actually become work and learning happens together at the same time. You're sort of using Maweu for the use of work, and then you're using Maweu for the use in learning, and it's sort of very synonymous. So I think we've been really fortunate also to be able to know that the tools we're using in the learning spaces are tools that people are using in our working spaces. So that's really great.
Thank you, Ghawa. Those are lovely examples from the training sector, but I think also very instructive for people in higher education and further education. So I think what I'm noticing is that we're starting to run out of time a little bit. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, what advice do you have for new online facilitators? And there should be time for a round of brief contributions from the panelists. So let's start with Prinavin. Brief advice for new online facilitators, Prinavin.
Thank you, Tony. I think the best advice I can give to new online facilitators is prepare. Have your backup. I've got a backup here. I'm in San Lemire. I've got an extra modem. I've got an extra laptop. I've got my thingy. I prepare in terms of before the lesson, what I'm going to do. I have a backup plan ABC. If something goes wrong, what do? I try to get my students engaged online. So that's my best advice. Prepare. Hi, Tony. I'm back. I'm sorry. I think you may have lost a few bits of communication out there. Tony? Hi, Tony.
There was a bit of disconnection, Prinavin.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's back. Perhaps we could go to Dr. Silvenus Konyole. Oh, Tony is back.
Okay, Irene, come and talk to us.
Actually, I was going to give it to Silvenus, but I can go. So for those who are interested in online facilitation, there are so many opportunities. We still offer the online facilitation that we were offering before, so that you can join. However, I think it's important for people to join other communities. There is the Liberating Structures community, which promotes a lot of methods, facilitation methods. There's the top methods community, there's the session lab community, there's the International Association of Facilitators, and many more. But more so, join sessions that are organized by one of us so that you can learn how they do these things. It's through seeing that we get better at what we do. The future of learning and a lot of other things is hybrid, if not online. So let's get ready for that. I know if someone told you that this was going to be an online conference some few years ago, you'd have said no, but now this is where we are going. So please be ready for this. Let's all get ready and be curious about AI, which is a very interesting part of being online. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Irene. Silvenus, a few thoughts.
Thanks,
from
Tony.
you.
I think I will just add to what the colleagues have said about this being the new normal, keep updating and retooling. And then the element of flexibility, as I can illustrate. There are sessions I meet with my students for a presentation, and for some reason, none of them can upload their slides except one. So we quickly adjust and say, can you all send them by email to so-and-so who is able to upload them? They all have the right to upload and everything, but somehow they can't. So that flexibility works so that the one person can be trusted with the work, uploads it, displays as people follow the presentation. And then I've also noticed something very interesting with the students. Once in a while, they'll tell you because of tech challenge or network or whatever, so they cannot be on video like I am not able to be now. And then they'll tell you I'm joining with so-and-so and so-and-so, while really the two so-and-sos are not there. So you may have to be innovative to find out how are the other two so-and-sos also attending, you know. And then also the element of logging in without the video, you may be actually talking to yourself. So how do you keep it going so that some of the skills we really learned on this course? So I think for me, I'll close it there, but innovation, updating, retooling. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Silvenus. I think we're going to need to move a little bit faster now because we've pretty much exceeded our time. And I really want to thank our panelists, Ghawa, Latib, Prinavin, Govender, Silvenus, Konyole, and my co-convener, Irene Maweu, for your insights, your wisdom here. And to know that you are so much more than so-and-sos. And I love that phrase, Silvenus. I'm going to just share a little bit more information before we go, very quickly. Hopefully this won't result in lots of people having to reconnect. Sharing now. Okay, so basically there is an open educational resource for facilitating online. You'll find the link in the presentation, which I'll share with conference organizers. Another course we also recommend is the course from University of Eswatini, Certificate in Online Teaching for Educators, which includes an element of online facilitation, but is much more directly about how am I going to be an online teacher. The Facilitating Online course is directly about online facilitation, implicitly brings in so much about online teaching as well. We have a course, yes indeed, thank you Leon Roots, I shall share many things. We have the Facilitating Online course, which we're planning to offer again next year. We're out of direct funding for it, so we can't sponsor places. But I think by this afternoon, I will have a form up for expressions of interest and a waiting list for next year as well. And that will be shared here in the chat also and in the presentation which the organizers will have available.